Yes, I want to thank you for the very warm welcome and your hospitality, and also this wonderful food that you gave to us. If I'd known I was supposed to say something, I might not have taken a second helping, and it might be a little more witty. Yeah, Paul covered most of the major things about Professor Kursunoglu. I should say that the idea of the Coral Gables Conferences, which started in 1964, arose at Argonne National Laboratory in the summer, the preceding summer. Arnold Perlmutter, Behram, and 2 or 3 other physicists came up with the crazy idea that it would be a good thing to have a conference in southern Florida in the middle of the winter, which struck everyone as just a very ingenious idea. I learned about the University of Miami entirely through the reputation of those conferences. Behram was probably one of the biggest influences for me to go to the University of Miami. Up to that point, I'd been at the University of Florida in Gainesville, and I'd been previously at the University of Chicago. Basically, I knew nothing about the University of Miami except through the reputation of the Coral Gables Conferences. So it was influential in my decision to move further south from Gainesville to the University of Miami in 1988. I'd been going to the Coral Gables Conference. When I got to the University of Florida, I started going to the Coral Gables Conferences. That was in 1981, I think. The first one was actually here in Fort Lauderdale. The first one that I attended was here in Fort Lauderdale. Nevertheless, it was called the Coral Gables Conference for some strange reason, for historical reasons, I guess. And I attended those regularly up until Behram passed away in late 2003. When that happened, the conference in 2003 had already been organized in part by Paul and other people. So the schedule was planned. There were in fact 3 Nobel laureates at that meeting. I believe there was Gerhard Hooft, Shelley Glashow, and Hooft's advisor, Martin Veltman. Since that time, there have been many illustrious physicists who have attended this meeting, and most of them have all been aware of Behram's contributions to physics. They've been respectful of his contributions. But I think that probably the biggest contribution that he has made to physics here in Florida is the establishment and the managing and running of these meetings, as Paul said, for almost 40 years, from 1964 to 2003. When he passed away, it was my good fortune to be able to help Arnold Perlmutter and Stephen Mintz, which Oğuz met at the meeting last week, or earlier this week. It was my good fortune to be co-editor of that final volume for the conferences that Behram put together. And it was a real pleasure to assemble all the talks, especially the tributes to Professor Kursunoglu. One of the speakers was Henry King Stanford, which, is you already heard, was president of the University of Miami when Behram went there. He said, in fact, that he recognized immediately that Behram had a stellar intellect, is the way he put it, and he supported him as best he could. In fact, he supported him very well in the establishment of the Center for Theoretical Studies. He's also the one that told me that you don't say the name Kursunoglu, you do not pronounce the G. So he was an admirer of Turkish culture, and he pointed this out to everyone he spoke to, that it's Kursunoglu. All right. I appreciated knowing that fact. Don't expect me to pronounce any other Turkish words even close to correct. Yeah, so after editing the proceedings for that volume, you saw the cover of the proceedings. I should say that the cover is a little bit more, well, perhaps it does not have the tradition of the the first two covers involving Hoxha. The cover on that last volume was actually a drawing, sketch done for a representative of a style of fashion, done by my youngest daughter, who incidentally was also born on Einstein's birthday, March the 14th, a few years later in 1980, or a few years after Behram was born. Anyway, it was a nice cover to put together. You may not have noticed, we don't have the pictures up there anymore, but in that cover on that final volume, there's this image of a woman extending her hand out, and there's a little ball of light that's come off of her fingertips. It's actually an artist's representation of an idea that Behram had about magnetic monopoles. He had, as Paul mentioned, magnetic monopoles raised a lot of excitement sometime in the late 1970s, early 1980s. And Behram had proposed a model of a bound state of a collection of these magnetic monopoles, and he referred to it as the orbiton. This ball of light coming off the fingertips of the lady on the final cover of the proceedings is actually an artist's representation that he commissioned for that bound state, for the orbiton, and I thought it was extremely appropriate to put it there. I hope that the meetings that have taken place since Behram passed away have been up to his standards. He always managed to have a very interesting collection of speakers. We tried to continue that with Paul's help and with the assistance of a lot of other people. Up until last year, we had Arnold Perlmutter's assistance in organizing these meetings. We still have one of the other originators of the sequence, Sidney Meshkov, who's an active organizer. I hope he continues for many more years, but as Paul said, he's 91 years old now. And so we hope to continue to do this, and we would love to keep this, the legend of Behram Kursunoglu alive through these conferences. In particular, we have tried to support students to attend these conferences over the years, and it's often difficult to find that support, but somehow we managed to do it. And it would be wonderful if we could refer to them as Kursunoglu scholars, but so far we haven't managed to create a permanent arrangement where that's the case. We only do it on a year-by-year basis. So that's basically all I have to say. I want to thank you again for the warm welcome and for the wonderful food. And I'm told there's a dessert that's coming up that's going to be absolutely unbelievable, so I look forward to that. I wish I'd saved a little more space for such a thing, but I'm going to force myself to eat it even if I don't have the space. So thank you very much.